This is Tim,
I'm Mulele.
and this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim with Mulele in Tokyo. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Can't really complain. How about you?
Yeah, okay. I mean, considering that I've got school again, summer vacation's over. Yeah, I'm doing okay. Yeah. So, as I think I mentioned before, during the summer, a lot of comics came in for us to talk about. So,
hmm
so we're doubling them up here again. We got a couple of this time. Let's first do Henshin Man. I'm not sure. I want to pronounce it in Japanese because Henshin's Japanese. Henshin Man, Henshin Man. Henshin is transform. Written by Cameron Kerkau, drawn by Ben Matsuya, lettered by CJ Standal, published at henshinman.com. And we ended up, weirdly, we ended up with two superhero comics this time. This one, well, it's a little tough to critique because there's not all that much of it. It's a web comic. When actually, it was a good thing it took us 6 weeks to get to this one after he submitted it because they've added a few more pages since then. But still, all we got is basically, well, starting out with this superhero type fight taking place in Tokyo in 1978. And apparently the good guy in that fight is Henshin Man. And the fight progresses for some pages, and then he shouts Henshin Hyaku, I guess Hyaku being 100 in Japanese, and blows up. And then we cut to apparently sometime later when on a TV in a McDonald's, which I don't recall I've ever seen a TV in a McDonald's. But there's a news report going about that day in January when Henshin Man apparently gave up his life to save the city or whatever. And there are a couple of high school boys in Japanese high school boy school uniforms eating in the McDonald's. And then one goes to swim practice and pukes, as you tend to do if you swim after eating McDonald's, or some might say even without swimming after eating McDonald's.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, just a quick note. I think in the news report they call him Henshin Hyaku, not Henshin Man, and I think
Okay.
Henshin Man might be a little bit different.
Okay, maybe
Actually,
what's coming in the story. Yeah.
but it might be Henshin Man as in Hyakusen Man.
Well, yeah, that's true. There is a man kanji on the site. That would make
Yeah.
sense too. The Hyaku 100 and man 10,000.
Yeah. It may be a play on words that no one would get unless they're bilingual, but
Yeah.
still, Henshin. I don't think the first guy was Henshin Man. I think it was Henshin Hyaku, and the next person behind Henshin Man.
What happened to Henshin Sen 1,000?
I have no idea. Maybe it just doesn't sound that good,
I guess not. Sounds like a train line.
or maybe before Henshin Hyaku was Henshin Ju. I don't know. It just seems a little bit a little bit lame.
Yeah, Henshin Ichi 1.
Yeah. Well, he's expecting to die and be replaced, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, apparently it keeps kind of leveling up to a more powerful hero. And the guy who threw up at swim practice is also like helping this kind of scientist or inventor and they've made this kind of high-tech bracelet, which I'm sure is going to be important. And then as we're recording, there's only one more page, which is set on another planet. And with only one page, I'm not quite sure what's going on. But, I mean, I think this comic is drawn pretty nicely. I can't really comment about the story. The writing seems to make sense. The thing that pops out at me is how the first X number of pages are just kind of normal comic book pages, and then suddenly we get to this complete change of format where we just have these kind of random panels scattered against a black background with so much space that you think the page is finished, and then you scroll some more. Oh, there's a panel down here, and I don't get what that was about. It's a little disorienting.
Yeah, and also it makes the conversation seem a little disjointed. Unless the only thing I can think of is that they started reworking their artwork for line comics.
Yeah, Webtoon.
This is kind of the format that they use.
Yeah,
it's a little bit unfortunate, but I can understand why. I can see why they did that. I don't necessarily agree, but yeah.
Well, let's see. Was he the one? Yeah, they are available on Webtoon and also Tapas,
right,
as well as on their website.
Okay, but it's like they suddenly realized, hey, we're going to be online, so let's switch to a scrolling format. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe it's because it's, at least in my browser, it's kind of zoomed in, and the panels are displaying pretty big. Maybe if I zoomed it out, it'll work a little better, but this just seems to be so much black space, and especially on the most recent page, you get there and you can't see anything, just black.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, why isn't the comic loading? And then I scrolled down. Yeah.
I think the idea is to give some element of pause or time passing, because we have the planet, and then we have it segues to what's going on that planet, and for me it doesn't it's understandable, but again it's not as good as just having a straight comic. At least not on this website. Maybe if I was reading it through Webtoons, I'd feel a little bit different about it. So it depends on what the market is.
So what do you think of the art?
Well, I thought the art was actually very, very well drawn. The style has nothing erratic about it. It's very smooth and functional. I think the artist is maybe not quite used to the Webtoon style, if this assumption is correct, because it seems just a little bit disjointed when it switches to that format. Also, just a quick note: the Patreon button, and this is for the creators of the comic. The Patreon button 404 is when you click it, so you might want to fix that.
Yeah, that could become an issue. You might say, oh no, why is nobody donating to our Patreon? Well, yeah, sure enough, I just clicked it and there's a fox floating in space with kind of a fox head shaped space helmet on. 404. Oh no, looks like you got lost.
Yeah, it works kind of thematically, but I don't think it's the result they want.
No.
So, I would say fix that as soon as possible. But other than that, it does a couple of things, because they're only like 10, 15 pages here. But the artwork and the writing are grounded enough that I can feel like, okay, nonsense is not going to come. They've got a plan here. And they haven't messed up on these first 15 pages. In most Most comics that are not like, I don't know what to say without sounding rude. I don't think this is an amateur work, but most comics that are of amateur level or just like random online comics aren't that sharp
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning. They become better over time, but the writer seems to know what he's doing, and so does the artist. And so I do feel a certain amount of I can trust that they will take this story in a nice direction because they've already done the prologue, I guess, and the introduction of the main character pretty solidly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the world isn't quite defined, and since it's an intergalactic comic, I guess it would be the universe, isn't quite defined, but we're getting there, and it seems that they do have a plan, and they're moving through it pretty briskly. So I feel like you can trust that it won't suddenly go weird or have a cheat at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, for what it is so far, I think okay, yeah, this is a solid comic.
Yeah, going good so far, but not a whole lot of it there quite yet.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
just the quantity is
Yeah.
is an issue.
And I don't know if you're feeling that you want to throw some money at these guys, hit them up on the website, I guess. Send them an email or something and say, send me the secret link to the Patreon, and maybe they'll make it available to you.
Okay, next we have Guano Guy. Story, letters, and logo by Mark Darden and art by Nick Hoffman. So, like I said, another superhero comic. In this case, Guano Guy is a superhero who's more interested in how he can leverage his public visibility to sell ad space on his costume or otherwise cash in on it. Now, something about the setup I didn't quite understand. So, he's living in a town that has built a dome around itself to keep superheroes out
Mm,
because they want to live a normal existence.
mhm,
So what's he doing there? I
mm.
mean, I wasn't quite clear. Like, does it mean that superheroes are against the law, or are they just kind of trying to hide from superheroes and hope that they don't find them? I wasn't quite sure how that worked. But anyway, he's there, and then a giant robot also shows up, which was the first time that had happened since they built the dome, and nobody's quite sure how the robot got there. I think this comic looks good. I mean, now he sent us two PDFs, and the other one seems to be it's short stories drawn apparently by various artists.
Mm.
Although I couldn't find any credits on it, so I don't know who drew it really. But in both books, I kind of felt like the story needed to pick up the pace a little,
Mhm.
or like even like in the short stories, you know, they're not, they are short stories, but I just didn't, for even a short page count like 4 pages, I felt like more needed to happen in them. For example, there's a story where that's basically it's 3 pages spent mainly on Guano Guy announcing on TV that he's selling ad space on his costume. I thought 3 pages was too much for that. It sort of belabored the point.
Mm.
Then we have 1 page where there's this kind of like short person or kid. I'm not quite sure the character's age, but he's like Guano Guy's biggest fan. And he's watching this announcement on TV, and everybody else in the room is wearing some kind of uniform, like they seem to be some sort of league of villains or something. And one of the guys says that everything Guano Guy does is 100% not cool. And
Mhm.
then there's a box that says continued next issue.
Mm.
And I feel like the story hasn't even really gotten started, and now you're telling me continued next issue. Now, actually, right after that in the PDF, there are two more pages of the story that are really roughly drawn. It seems like maybe this PDF is glommed together from different issues or something. And so we get the next two pages of the story, which are basically just a continuation of the argument between Guano Guy's fan and the leader of the villain group about whether Guano Guy is cool or not. And it didn't seem interesting to me. I wanted more to happen there
Mm.
because I felt like there's a lot of potential in this idea of the superhero who's just in it for marketing opportunities and synergy opportunities and whatever like that, and not like, oh, I want to do good because it's the right thing to do. But it just felt like a lot of the potential was not being realized.
Mm.
What did you think?
Um, well, the first, I don't know which PDF is the first PDF, but the one that you sent
Well,
a direct link for that has the nice cover art.
yeah, the giant robot. Yeah, I think that's, well, that was the first one that he sent, and then he sent the one of the other one is the one of short stories.
Yeah, I didn't read the one of short stories because I thought it was the same thing, but I read the original one, the first link,
Okay.
and to be honest, Guano Guy. So the origin story of Batman is that he falls down a cave and finds bats, is scared by them, and decides to use them as a kind of a symbol of fear against criminals who killed his parents. Is that right?
I think that's how it is in the last set of movies. In the original comic, just the bat flew in the window, but yeah, basically he thought, criminals are scared of bats, so I'll be a bat and I'll uh, take it out on criminals because a criminal killed my parents.
Okay. As silly as that sounds, I mean, I kind of wonder what is the origin of Guano Guy. Guano means batshit.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened here, but that origin story's got to be pretty silly. The story itself of Guano Guy didn't seem interesting to me. It actually seemed kind of like meh. But the interviews at the end with the reporter. Now, mind you, some of the interviews where she's just talking to different people are actually kind of fun, kind of interesting. When she gets to Thor and the Minotaur, who's actually Loki in disguise, I kind of didn't like that, and it's because rap as a throwaway gag enough, but here it runs on for a page and a half, 2 pages, and really is not interesting. Um, I thought the artwork was beautiful. It was absolutely gorgeous,
Mm-hmm.
but the gag is not interesting at all. And I kind of wanted it to stop with this like 1980s dad rap nonsense. It actually made me a little bit angry, and so yeah, I wasn't really happy with that. Even though the artwork is the best artwork of this PDF, um, but the vampire bit after that, I thought was actually a little more interesting, a little more endearing, and the vampire character, I guess that's Dracula, um, I found to be kind of an interesting character.
Hmm.
He may be a bad guy, don't know for sure, but he does what he does, and he's not. He's got a kind of prissy way about himself, and there's some very matter-of-fact things, like does fire kill you? Are you allergic to fire? And he says everyone is allergic to fire. Some that I found quite humorous, and I thought that was pretty good. This character is kind of worth it. I really liked it, and also the artwork is top notch here, from the watercolor stylings to some of the red pen line work. I thought it was beautiful, and it was funny, and I really like that. But the rest of it, the hero is meh, and the Thor stuff pissed me off. So I really wasn't feeling it. But damn, that artwork is gorgeous. The watercolor stuff is much better than the computer stuff. The computer stuff is kind of flat, and sometimes the colors are a little bit harsh, especially like the reds are like really bright red. It's not wrong. It's just a little bit, the watercolor is much more subtle, much more interesting, and it kind of moves on the page with some nice feeling. I would actually go with that as a comic style. I mean, if you were to chop out all the other shit and just keep the Dracula bit and start adding to that as the main thing, that's a comic really I would be more interested in reading.
Yeah, I by chance I ended up reading the short story PDF first, and then I picked up this one, and I got part way through, and I thought, well, I've read more than 30 pages, and I never got back to it. I missed the watercolored story completely.
Okay.
But yeah, it does look really nice. I'm looking at it now. But yeah, I mean, aside from the coloring, just art-wise, I don't see, nothing really stuck out as a problem with any of it. It looked really nice, but yeah, just a lot of the writing I felt like needed something more.
Well, I mean, the hero thing kind of comes from nothing and goes to nothing, so there's not really much there we can do with it. Whereas the Dracula thing, the reason why I like it so much is because it reminds me of the movie What We Do in the Shadows. Have you seen that?
No.
It's a 2014, reading from the website, 2014 New Zealand mockumentary horror comedy film about a group of vampires who live together in Wellington. And this is I'm not sure if it's the debut, but Taika Waititi, the director of Thor Ragnarok, directed this.
Huh.
So he also starred in it and helped write it. And it was quite brilliant. I thought it was really charming as well. And so when I looked at this comic with Dracula in it, there's some sense of that. Dracula himself is charming, and maybe he does some bad things, but he doesn't feel he's so bad. He's just a guy doing a thing, and just, getting a little blood. It's kind of no malicious intent there. And the bit when he says, how he doesn't enter a house without being invited, it's because it's rude, not because he can't cross the threshold without being invited. And I was like, yeah, that's charming. I just really like that. But the rest of it, the hero stuff is kind of not worth it to me. And if the writer's going to hang his hat on it being a hero comic, kind of a pass. I hate to say it like that. It's a little bit harsh, but the hero stuff is really underdeveloped and is there only for gags.
Yeah, I felt it. A lot of it just felt like the same joke being told again and again.
So I didn't get to the other stories though, so I don't know about those. But yeah, kind of whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your social media?
Okay, I'm at Mulele Redux on Instagram and Twitter. Facebook, I'm not really into it. Kind of keeping it around, but I'm posting nothing on it. I'm posting on Instagram and Twitter a lot these days. Actually, more Twitter than Instagram. Instagram, I'm posting about once a week, whatever I'm working on. And a lot of small little projects have kind of come up. So it's stuff that I'm working on with other people, so I'm not really sure how much I can post. So my posting is kind of slowed down a bit. But I do want to mention, as a kind of a sly segue, that did I tell you about being stopped by that cop a couple of weeks ago?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, well, quick story time. I was hanging out with Oscar in Kichijoji. Just came out of a wine bar and kind of walking down the street, and this guy on a skateboard kind of strolls up beside us, and we all stop at the intersection. And just as soon as we get here, this cop on a bicycle rides in front of us, stops his bike, and gets off and says to the skateboard guy, "Hey, be careful. These things are dangerous." And the guy just kind of shrugs like, "Okay," and picks up his skateboard. Oscar and I kind of exit that scene, turning to the right and going between the cop and the skateboard guy. The skateboard guy kind of rides off in his own direction, and we're just kind of walking down the street. I kind of look over my shoulder and I say, "Man, that cop's a hater," thinking, he's a hater of skateboard guys. That was kind of like out of the blue, random, and he wasn't actually moving on his skateboard. He had stopped at the intersection for safety reasons. But because I looked over my shoulder and said something, the cop decided to walk up to us and say, "Hey, show me your passports or IDs," to Oscar and I. And so we stopped, we turned around and said, "What'd we do?" He says, "Well, it's the law. You've got to show me your ID." And in this situation, I got to ask you, Tim, what would you do?
Well, I mean, he's right in that he has the right to ask to see that, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think I would be afraid of getting arrested if I didn't show him anything.
Here's what happened. I said, "Look, we didn't do anything wrong, and so you've got no reason to stop us." And all this is in Japanese, and I'm kind of huffing along with my Japanese because sometimes it's not the smoothest. But I said, "You've got no right to stop us. We weren't doing anything wrong." It's like, no, I can just stop you because I'm doing patrols, and I want to see your ID. And I said, "But why? You've got no reason." It's like, "No, you have a responsibility. You've got a responsibility, and it's the law." And I said, "You can ask all these other people. Yeah, look at those Japanese people over there. Why don't you ask them for their IDs?" And he's like, ignored that and said, "Show me your ID." And I said, "No, I'm not going to show you my ID. This is harassment." And then after a while, we kind of go round, like you've got a responsibility. It's the law, blah, 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 a couple of times. And then he kind of gives up, looks at Oscar and says, "Do you have your passport with you?" And Oscar says, "No." And he says, "Well, show me your ID." And then Oscar says, "No." And the guy starts saying again about, it's the law and you have a responsibility. And Oscar cut to the chase and just said, "Are we under arrest?" And by this time we're speaking in English because we're not. I mean, the cop was like, "Hey, speak Japanese." I'm like, "No. Speak English." He's like, "I can't speak English." It's not my problem. But anyway, we're kind of going at it. And he says, "Are we under arrest?" And that makes a gesture like our hands are in cuffs. And the cop kind of says, "Oh, no, you're not under arrest." And then Oscar's just like, "Can we go then?" And the cop's like, "Fine." And as soon as we turn around, the cop hops on his bike and books out of there. And so kind of looking this up, found the rules to this kind of situation are, number one, when the cop approaches you, he has to show you his ID first.
Oh.
He has to show you his ID card, not just a badge, full ID. Then he has the right to ask you for your ID. But you have the right to refuse.
Okay.
That's it. I say no, and that's the end. The fact that he said it's the law and you have a responsibility to show me, that was actually a lie. The cop lied. So Oscar and I decided to make a comic about it. And
Okay.
we'll include all of the rules of engagement when cops stop you at the end of this little story. But kind of looking online to see that there are a lot of people who are harassed by the cops because the cops feel that they have a right to just walk up and card people. But that's not the way it works. And
Okay. I hadn't been aware of the rules, and I'm sure a lot of other foreigners aren't either.
Yeah, Oscar kind of looked at me and said, for people who don't know, Oscar's got blonde hair, blue eyes, and I've got kind of brownish skin and black curly hair. Well, kind of graying now, but basically, Oscar's like, man, that guy profiled you. I think he was fucking with you because you were a cop, because you were not white and not Japanese. And yeah, he did kind of like beeline to me and ask me first for like 5 or so minutes. And when he gave up on me, then he turned to Oscar. And so kind of looking at that, yeah, I think it's a subtle harassment of non-Japanese, non-white people. It's not that this is a systemic thing that cops do. I don't know that for sure. But it's something that happened to me more than once. Being stopped for walking by a cop telling me that it's suspicious for me to walk at this time in the evening. And when I point to other people walking on the same street, they're like, okay, never mind that. And it's something a little more personal. And so making a comic just to kind of bring awareness to that shit. I'll be selling it at the next Comitia, or I guess that would be the Kaigai Manga Festival.
Yeah, in November.
Yeah, but I'm thinking as just a PSA, I might just make it available online. I got to talk to Oscar about that because it's half his comic. But yeah, anyway, that's my big project.
Yeah, well, I mean that would be good for the Kaigai and Cat audience.
Yeah.
Okay, now getting back to social media, I'm at Decon Comics on Twitter, and then of course Deconstructing Comics has both Facebook page and a Facebook group. I have my own Instagram account that I hardly ever use. I mostly use the other one that's to promote my Machigai English stuff. So there's really no Deconstructing Comics or Critiquing Comics or To the Batpoles activity on Instagram at all, because I don't want to have to I maintain so many different social media accounts and do it so poorly that I don't really want to add any more. But I've been on Twitter a little bit more lately. Just occasionally I'll kind of stop in, retweet a couple things, respond to something, beyond just my usual, this is the new episode tweets. But anyway, so we'll be back in a couple weeks. And if you'd like us to critique your comic, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com, and we'll read at least 30 pages of it and critique it on the show. So till next time, this is Tim.
And Mulele.
And this, thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to Critiquing Comics.